Hello. Hello. Am I audible? Okay, so I'm just going to continue. Okay, thank you so much, Leah. All right. Um, so I'm not sure how this is going to work. Okay, great. So I'm just gonna begin, and then hopefully the delegates who are not here can refer to the stream. Okay, wait 1 second. Let's see. All right. So today I'm going to be presenting. So it's the stream has finally worked. I hope everybody can hear me well. I am just trusting the secretariat's words at the moment. So we are going to go into our briefing on how is MutiaraMUN going to work. So the rules of procedure, as a delegate, what are the rules that you are meant to follow? What is the Harvard Model United Nations ROP, as well as yeah, just general pre-conference etiquette and etc. So let's start with the basics. So we will be covering introductions of each other, the deadlines that you are meant to follow, and the communication channels that will be used for this conference. During the council sessions, what is mandatory, such as punctuality, adhering to the dress code, your language, maintaining decorum, placard usage, diplomacy, and following your time limits accordingly. So, before the conference, once all of the delegates have been added to the group chats, so let it be on WhatsApp or on Discord, kindly do introduce yourselves if you want to. In the end of the day, everybody is still, a delegate, let it be representing different schools or just individually or joining for the sake of it. We want everybody to have fun and, make sure that you're having a good experience. So do not do not intimidate the other delegates, do not be disrespectful towards the other delegates, do not use any foul language, be respectful at all times. As when it comes to the deadlines, I'm very sure that every delegate has already has access to the research reports at the moment. So kindly do keep track of your deadlines when you are supposed to be submitting. Okay, for instance, the first document that you're meant to be submitting before the conference starts would be your position papers. Every single position paper has been standardized to be due on the 25th of September, which is Thursday at 11:59 p.m. So the delegates, every single one of you should be submitting it beforehand unless you have prior communication with your chairs. So if you are unable to or you need an extension, do communicate that with your chairs. If not, your position paper will not be considered at all, and that will affect your marks and also will affect your eligibility for awards. So if you do not have, if you have not submitted a position paper, you unfortunately will not be eligible for any and all awards. You will just get your participation certificate. So if I mean, when it comes to the extension, obviously do ask it a few days prior. The chairs also have a lot of marking to do. So kindly do not, ask them on Thursday itself, or, don't be texting them at 11:30 p.m. when it's due in another 20 minutes. If you do need an extension, try your best. First of all, try your best to submit it as, like complete it before the deadline. It helps keep everything organized. But if you do have certain circumstances in which you cannot do so, try your best to communicate it with the chairs at least by the weekend before the conference. So next would be actually, let me just, I think I can make this full screen. Okay. So the channels that we are going to be using for this conference would be WhatsApp. So that's where the main communication would happen. There will be a group chat with just the each council's delegates, and then there will be a general group chat as well. So that will be used to for us to deliver any announcements or any important things that the delegates are meant to know. Once you do get your allocation, I mean, once you get the link for the WhatsApp channel, join your group accordingly. Stay updated. Make sure that you're checking the channel regularly. However, just because you have your chair's numbers, do not call them. Do not, spam them. Do not excessively text them and expect them to reply immediately. That is very unrealistic, and also really, I mean, it's really unprofessional on your end. So, yeah, when the dyers are available, they will get back to you as soon as possible. Next, okay, as I mentioned previously, punctuality is very important. So, if your council session begins at if your council session begins at 9 a.m., try your best to come there by 8:50. Coming earlier is, much better than coming later, and it will also take a toll on your marks. Just to inform you, the chairs will take it into account in the marking scheme. So try your best, like if you are late, then do communicate that with your chairs to make sure that they have to be informed. If you do arrive late, after informing your chairs, kindly do not interrupt the council session. So if there is a speech ongoing or if there's a presentation ongoing, come in silently, sit down, set up your laptop, set up your devices, and, continue staying silent and not disrupting any of the ongoing events at that moment. Next would be for the dress code. You're meant to dress formally or semi-formally. Obviously, you're also, for the delegates who have joined months previously, then you understand the themes, things that you're allowed to wear and things that you're not. If you guys do want to wear your country's traditional clothing, as in if you are representing Malaysia, for instance, and you want to wear Malaysian traditional clothing, you can, as long as it is appropriate. So this applies for any of the countries that you're representing. Next, this would play a huge part in your diplomacy and decorum marks in your marking scheme. So take note of it, and yeah, staying silent when you're not speaking, if it's not your turn, if you're not making a speech, or if you're not, playing a part in the discussion, then, do not speak when it's not your turn. Try to keep a tidy, clear working space, and don't disrupt any council sessions. Do not talk about personal issues or personal matters during formal council session, and obviously do not be falling asleep or playing on your devices. Your devices have only been granted during your council sessions for you to access your research or for you to conduct research during that time. Different chairs will have a different AI policy, so I will keep that part to them. Whatever rules that they wish to set for the usage of AI will completely be up to the chairs, but obviously it is discouraged. And yeah, next up is your placard. So if you would like to make a speech, so you would have to raise your placard only when the chairs ask for. I mean, when it's in order. So if they are saying, okay, that the floor is open for any and all motions, that means in order for you to volunteer, for you to be wanting to be added to the GSL, oops, you would have to raise your placard. The chairs will then see which country or which delegation is raising their placard and add you accordingly. You have to wait for the dais to acknowledge you. So if you're raising your placard, let's say it's a point of information session or waiting to be added or waiting to be acknowledged to state your motion up until the dais does call out your country, you have to keep your flag up until that moment, or else they're going to assume that you do not want to make your point or you do not want to raise your motion anymore, and they're just not going to call on you anymore. So you cannot ask the chairs after during the informal session, why didn't you call me, if you're not raising your placard during the allocated times for it. Do not wave your placard and kindly keep it in a proper in a proper state. Those placards are the only things that you have in order to represent your country in that moment. So if you lose it, or if you're technically not there, you're technically not even present as a delegate if you don't have it, because without that you have no cue to speak. You have no way to like add yourselves anywhere. So yeah. As for diplomacy, when you are giving a speech, let it be for the GSL, let it be for any points of inquiry, or let it be to raise a motion, you would have to stand up while making your speech. So anytime that you are talking individually as a delegate, kindly do stand up and make your speech. When other delegates are talking, do not interrupt them, do not be disrespectful, do not raise your voice, do not, basically be civil and have civil conversations during all times, whether let it be a formal or informal session, every single moment you should be maintaining that decorum. During your informal sessions, you are allowed to move around in your council room. This is in order for you to form blocks. So if you're the delegate of France and you need to form a block with the delegate of Italy, and they're all the way across the room, you would have to communicate them, and it's currently an unmoderated caucus. So you're allowed to move there, or they're allowed to come to your table and have discussions. But do be reminded of the time limit. The voice limit. Nobody is allowed to go beyond that voice limit, because you have to keep in mind that every single person, that this is a school, this is an educational institute that you are currently in, so you have to adhere to their rules as well. And of course, in order for you to be, keep the friendly spirit, make sure that everybody is being diplomatic with everybody, do not isolate any delegates, do not, cross talk, especially during formal debate. If it's a formal session and the delegate is making a speech, there will be no cross talk will be tolerated. Only during informal sessions are you allowed to, have conversations and speak over each other, or like, across to each other. And of course, every single person has to adhere to the time limits. So when you're making your speeches, if you have 1 minute 30 seconds on the clock, then make your speeches in that time. If you have made your speech and you have a remaining, you have more than 20 seconds remaining, you can yield that time to POIs, or you can yield that remaining time to another delegate. So we will go into the yields after this. But don't. Sometimes even the shortest of speeches can make the best or the highest of impacts. It's not about how long you're talking for. It's more about what you're saying in it. If your speech is really informative, or it's something that's really going to steer the council, and it's just for 40 seconds, that's fine. You can yield the remaining of your time to POIs or to another delegate, maybe stir up the discussion a bit, maybe you want to hear the point of views from other delegates as well. That's all gonna really help, like boost the engagement and the like the discussion of the current topic, right? So that's really great for any delegate to do whatsoever. As mentioned, do not go over the time. So if you have already spoken for 90 seconds perhaps, and you can see on one chord, you can look at the screen that it's already going against the chairs will be, banging the gavel on the table. That means your time is up. So you cannot continue your speech anymore. Right. So now it is for time for research. So how and where do you start your research? Obviously, Google is going to be your best friend in this case. So if you want to search any research materials for your topic, you can use the keywords. You can use your country's names. In order to really get a more specific search, there will be key terms and also the points of contentions that are mentioned in your council's research report that every single delegate here should keep in mind of, because those words are what's going to give you the best outcome when it comes to whether you're searching it online or you're getting like any physical material or etc. But it is also important to keep in mind that those themes are what's going to be repeated or constantly brought up during your debates, right? Because those are some really significant things, or maybe from those themes are what other delegates are going to use to branch out their debates and their arguments. So it's best to keep yourself prepared with your own stances and your own information um, during any of the council sessions. What we suggest as as people, I mean, sorry, as the well, for me personally, somebody who has been doing MUN for a long time, is that I keep a research folder. So this how it really has helped me over the years of doing this is that it allows me to really compile like every single information that I collect. And one part of this research folder is having a country profile. So this is where I include links to any articles, any journals, any entries, publications, or any part of information research that I feel like, okay, I'm not gonna include this entire excerpt in my speech. However, some of these points are really noteworthy, or some of these points are things that we need to bring up or we need to address in this council session or for this agenda. So it is good to keep everything there. And then as the committee sessions go, I check back on my research folder and see what I have mentioned, what I haven't mentioned, what the committee sessions have covered, what they haven't, what is something that would add on to the current flow of discussion, what's something that would counteract against my delegate, sorry, against my country. So it really gives you a clear idea when you look at that research folder after each committee session, and you think and you start to question yourself on what is important right now and what can I do, what can I present that would help um, move things forward for our draft resolution, which is the end goal in the end of the day. So how I build, I mean, how everybody should be building their country's profiles is to include aspects such as political, economical, and social. So if some people here are familiar with the pestle analysis, which I do not too sure if actually never mind. If you would like to search it, you can. So it's PESTEL. So P stands for political, E stands for economical, S stands for social, T stands for technological, the other E stands for ethical or environmental, and the last L stands for legal. So this gives you a basic framework on how to allocate your research and to make sure that you've really dissected each sector of just general analyzing into your country for this agenda. So it is very important for you to be aware of who your allies, who are your neighbors, and of course, in a non-diplomatic way, who are your enemies or the countries that would go against you in this issue, against your stance in this issue. For oops, I accidentally clicked on the thing. Okay, so for those who are watching the stream right now, if you would like to access the country profile template, you may do so here, but this will also be shared to you closer to the date of the conference. I I don't know why it's not. Okay. Right. Next, where can you source your information? So a few things that we're about to go into would be firstly your council's research report. You definitely have to read it because only when you read what your chairs have written will you know what your chairs are looking for in this conference. Another few places you can you can keep yourself well versed in through news articles, any online opinions or editorials, any reports from credible sources, obviously, and research journals as well. So the research report is written by the chairs, which every single delegate should have received by now. In order for you to gain an understanding about the topic, the chairs have done extensive research and have put in all the important information, the points of contention, the historical background, the introduction, and the questions that the draft resolution should answer. So by the end of the council, at the end of committee session, if I'm not mistaken, there's eight. Eventually there will be some draft resolutions that have been put out there, right? So all of you, if you want to assess the feasibility of your draft resolutions, of course, the signatories and sponsors would have to be countries that do align with the draft resolution, their countries' policy, foreign policies. But alongside that, to make sure that you have everything covered, all of the questions that are listed there by the chair should definitely be answered. If you miss some of the questions there and maybe replace it with other information, the chairs will also take that into consideration. So this does play a huge role in your marks. That is something that the delegates should also take into account. Okay, next up, news articles. So, to understand the actual situation of your agenda, it is important to read the latest articles, latest publications. Sometimes, okay, even if the chairs have written their research report and it's already been sent out to you by on the 10th of September, right? So, let's say for your agenda, something really important happened just about 2 days before conference starts. That is something that you need to keep yourself updated on because it will definitely come up during your discussions or during your speeches, right? Or it's something that you should bring up, considering you guys are talking about a topic in the current state and current time of the events happening. So it'll be very important to your discussions. Next, commentary or opinion pieces. This is something that, as mentioned here, you have to be careful of bias because certain countries or individuals or news articles or reporters slash journalists, they are going to be writing things from their point of view, right? So it's gonna have a certain theme to it. In order for you to gain various perspectives, this is something that will give you that knowledge, which is good. It's good to have it equipped, but try your best to remove yourself from that bias because in the end of the day you are fighting for that, yes, for that issue, for in favor of your country stance. So you have to also always keep that in mind. If you're supporting something when your country is not supporting something or it's going against what they have been preaching about, then you're going to lose a lot of marks for foreign policy. Yes, and as mentioned earlier, you have to make sure your reports are credible. Make sure you are checking that, it's not just published on random websites. The publication, let it be authors or the institutions, have to be credible institutions. You can do more research on that once you have come across an article which you're not so sure of if it is something that you can trust or if it's something that has been um, altered, perhaps. Yeah, this using statistics, using the latest news reports, the latest updates on what's happening is also going to add onto your arguments. It's also going to be able to allow you to, when you're mentioning it during your arguments or during your speeches, other delegates will see that as an opportunity to either build onto that or to break you down. To either put you or to create an possibly you have met an ally, or to create in order if they feel that their foreign policy is also aligning with something that has happened recently with your country, that would be grounds to possibly form a block. So you are going to have to be very precautious when another delegate is approaching you to form a block, because you have to do some research on that delegate's policies and that delegate's foreign stance as well, to make sure that the country's foreign policies do in fact align, and creating a block would not be detrimental to your country's best interests. Here are a few websites that give you credible research journals. These are the only free databases that have been collected so far. But if you do find your own, and if you believe that it is indeed credible, then you may gladly go ahead and use those. These are the ones that we could find, and yeah, you may use these, and you may use the other forms of research and information that we've already provided to you. And yeah, as mentioned previously, another important part of your research is really knowing your country in depth. So build your country profile, have a clear understanding of your country's current situation, their past situation, possible events that have led to certain policies being formed or certain frameworks being put in place. All of these things are very, very potent for you to build your arguments and for you to form blocks with other countries. And next, obviously, see, it's different. Now that you are representing your country in that council, you can find more research and more information of what your country has done. Sorry, what the council has done for your country by searching in the official United Nations website itself. There will be the mandates there, and there will be the frameworks that have been published. So you are allowed to access that as well. All of this information is free. So the accessibility to this is not blocked at all. It allows you to ask yourself the question of, is your country part of the GA? What countries are currently in your council? What structural subcommittees exist in your council? And then slowly move on to ask yourself, how do any and all of these affect the overall movement of the agenda that's being set? So if you're currently in agenda A, ask yourself that for agenda A, for agenda B, anyhow, including research for both of the agendas moving in, because you're not sure whether or not agenda A or agenda B will be tabled first, is really good, and it's something to add onto your research portfolio. Next, for citations, which is very important. Okay. My personal suggestion, honestly, is just to use MyBib. It's a very easy way to MLA or APA site. As long as you have the information that they are asking for, such as the author or the publication website, or what material it's from, and etc., the publication date and whatnot, it is very easy for you to auto site using MyBib. But if you do it manually, then you should already be an expert in knowing how to reference the format and etc. And that is very important and needed in your position paper. So if you want to do in-text citations, you may. If you want to have footnotes, you may as well, as long as there's a bibliography with all of your citations at the end. And do take into account that plagiarism will also affect your marks. So yeah, even when coming up with speeches and using AI generated speeches, the chairs will know, and the secretariat will be on a keen eye out, watching and monitoring everybody's devices. So, that's something that none of the delegates should be caught using. But like I mentioned previously, different chairs, they have different rules, different viewpoints when it comes to that. So I will let them take care of that. And this is something that every delegate here should know. So let it be a first timer or somebody who's really experienced, that it is indeed impossible to research everything in a topic. there will be some things that there will be some instances where other delegates bring up points or informations or clarifications that you may not be familiar with, or maybe did not consider that point of view or consider that sector as something that's important to be brought up for this agenda. And that's totally fine. That is fine and that's expected. You take that information, you take that point, you keep it, you archive it, and then you bring it up and you research about it and make sure that you are aware of it. Just because another delegate has information in which you don't, doesn't necessarily mean that's a weakness. That just gives you more space and more time to research about it, find out about it, and then you can bring it up in your next GSL or in the next moderated caucus or during an unmod or consultation of the whole. You have so many opportunities from there on out to bring it up and to shine light either onto your country stance or something that's going to benefit the council as a whole. So now we'll be going into the briefing of the Harvard Model United Nations Rules of Procedure. So what is HMUN, right? Basically, it is the Harvard standard rules for debate. So there is a standardized HMUN for Malaysia. You may access it through the code here. So you can just scan the QR, or it is included in your research report. So if you go to the rules of procedure section in your research report, every single research report has it listed there. The link is listed there. So everybody should have access to it already. So why this has been implemented throughout Malaysia is because it works to create a productive environment for discussion on, different. We have, honestly, in all of the months that have been going on in Malaysia, you will see so many like complex subjects. For instance, global peace, security, economic development, and social progress. We too, considering that we have HRC, UN Women, ECOSOC, and WHO alongside with ITC also share those themes. So this was the chosen ROP for MutiaraMUN 2025. Okay, this is just general rules, general etiquette that every single person here should know and should be implementing throughout the conference. Kindly only speak English. That is our standard language of this conference. When you're making your speeches, so during formal and informal sessions, do speak in third person point of view. So you can refer to yourself as we or our, or the best way to refer to yourself, to address yourself during the speeches, is by mentioning your country's name. So you can say the delegate of India or India. That would be the best way to address your delegation throughout your sessions and throughout your speeches. When you are not speaking, do not speak at all. When you are not called upon, when you're not making a speech, when your name is not on the screen, as in your country is not on the screen, your country's time is not running, that is not your time to speak, so do remain silent. If you would like to speak to another delegate, there will be notes, there will be pieces of paper. So all you will have to do is write your message and then raise up that small piece of paper. The secretariat will see that. You should write outside which country it is from. So which country you are writing, who are you representing, as well as which country you want to send it to. So all the secretariat has to do is look at that, and then they will find the country and they will pass it. So the only people who would be doing walking and technically delivering of messages would be the secretariat. There will be no more cross-talking and no other needs of communication there. Right. So here are some pre-debate procedures. This will happen during the roll call session of the debate. So the roll call session happens at the beginning of every single committee session. Once again, it is also up to chair's discretion. So certain chairs, they either take roll call at the beginning of the day only. Some chairs take roll call at the beginning of every single committee session. That is up to chair's discretion. So if the delegate is called upon, okay, delegate of Malaysia, are you present or present and voting? Present means you can abstain during substantive votes. So for example,
when you're voting upon draft resolutions, you can abstain, which means you are neutral. You're not for or you're not against that draft resolution. If you are present and voting, you cannot abstain. That means that you have to either be for or you have to either be against. There's no in between. You are not allowed to be neutral. Next, when making speeches, as mentioned earlier, there's no use of first person. So that you're not referring to yourself. You're currently the second formal session begins. You are not you. You are your country. Whichever country that you're representing, you are them. Okay, next would be for yielding. So whoever has the floor has the speaking rights. So if you are making a speech during your general speakers list, and as mentioned previously, if your speaking time is 90 seconds and you've spoken for 40 seconds, so you have a remaining of 50 seconds on the clock, you may yield your remaining time either to another delegate. So you would say, okay, this delegate would like to yield to the delegate of blank, and then the chairs will ask delegate of blank, would you do you accept this yield? If they accept, then the remaining 50 times will be allocated to them. You sit down, and they would stand up and make their speech for those 50 seconds. And even they are allowed to yield again, but that is up to their discretion. Or if you do not want to yield it, you may yield the time back to the chair, which is essentially saying that your speech is over and the chair will move on to the next speech or the next motion, right? Or you may yield to however many points of information. That means that you're open to any and all questions. So if you as a delegate say, okay, this delegate would like to yield to two POIs, then the chair would say, the delegate of blank has yielded themselves to two POIs. Delegates wishing to raise a POI, kindly raise your placard. And then the chair will pick out two delegates to ask the questions. They will stand up, ask the question. You will answer the question. That's it. The delegate may request for a follow up, but that too would depend on how much time there is remaining. So that is all under chair's discretion. This is an example. Okay, so this would be a basic example of a speech. I will just, quickly recite this. This delegate believes that climate change is a threat towards humanity that has to be dealt with swiftly. The greatest hurdle in tackling this issue is that it requires global cooperation from all of us. Although some delegates might not be suffering the consequences of climate change yet, such nations' inaction will lead to the downfall of other nations. This delegate urges all the other nations to come forward and help this world that we live in and support this resolution that this delegate drafted alongside with the delegate of France. This delegate now yields the floor to points of information. So this means that they are yielding their time to any and all points of information. They're not setting a set number of questions. It's just until the time has finished or until the chair says, okay, two questions. That's all the time. That's all the questions we have time for. Now moving on to the next speaker. So there are two speakers lists. The primary speakers list is the first one. This is before an agenda has been set. So this is essentially your opening speeches, right? So up to the chair, you'd either have 1 minute or 90 seconds. And this is the time where you, as a delegate, have to state your country stances for both agendas. This is your stance on agenda A, this is your stance on agenda B. However, for our first committee session, I believe that we should begin discussing agenda A because yada yada yada. So you have to choose an agenda, you have to urge and push for that agenda, and then later, after the primary speakers list has been exhausted, so after all the delegates have made their opening speeches, the chairs will move into setting an agenda. So motion to set an agenda, and then they would ask, okay, delegates in favor of setting agenda, tabling agenda A, kindly raise your placard. And then, they'll see which agenda has more votes, and then they will move into that agenda. Your general speakers list is a list that will constantly be, delegates can constantly add themselves to the list and will only be exhausted in the last committee session. So you can make as many speeches as you want to for however long. Okay, I mean, there will be a set time. And you can, in a general speakers list, only can you yield to other delegates. When you're in a moderated caucus, on the other hand, you cannot yield your time. Once you have done with your speech, even if you have 30 seconds left, you're done, finished. The chair will stop the time, you sit down, and then move on to the next speaker. These are the list of motions according to disruptivity. That means most important to least important. We'll be going through them one by one. Some of them we've already covered, so do not get intimidated by how long this list looks. These are the most important motions that you should keep in mind. So these are motions that will have a voting procedure. Roll call vote. Okay, this is irrelevant to our conference. An unmoderated caucus is when delegates can essentially lobby. So you stand up, you're allowed to move around. However, as mentioned previously, you have to stay civil, you have to maintain your voice limit, and you have to maintain every single other rule of decorum. Um, Next, when there is a draft resolution that has been introduced, and let's say that it's already motion to move into voting procedure. If a delegate raises the motion to divide the question, that means that they are wishing to vote clause by clause. So not by the whole draft resolution, but by each clause. So clause one, subclause A, subclause B, subclause C. Right. Next, consultation of the whole. So how this will work is if a delegate raises their placard and raises the motion for consultation of the whole for 20 minutes, and that is in favor, delegates vote upon it, and there's a majority. Okay, so now we are in the COTW. The delegate who proposed it may speak. Let's say it's 20 minutes. So you may speak. This would also depend on the chair, but what normally we set it, okay, myself as a chair would set it as that delegate who proposed it, if they can only speak lesser than the time, the half of the time that they have set. So if it's for 20 minutes, they should only be speaking maximum for 9 minutes. And then they have to yield their time to the next delegate. So that's the thing about consultation of the whole. You're allowed to have group discussions, but in a civil way in which all the delegates can hear you. Nobody's cross talking with you. Some people they use this either to lobby for their draft resolution. Some people they use this to, explain about a certain topic in depth. Maybe because the general speaker's time 1 minute 30 seconds is sometimes not enough for you to really elaborate on some points, or for you to really push your draft resolution out there, right? So you're going to need more than 1 minute 30 seconds. That's when delegates usually bring up a consultation of the whole, or they want to talk about a topic, so they want to really state their stance out there. Maybe they speak for 4.5 minutes, then they yield to their ally, or maybe they yield to a country whose foreign policies go against their foreign policies. So they want to hear their opinions. They yield to that delegate, and then the delegate shares their opinion. So yeah, this will be done until the time has exhausted, right? Divide the house is basically if this motion passes, if a delegate raises the motion to divide the house and this motion passes for a draft resolution, that means that all the delegates in which voted present and voting and present are no longer allowed to abstain. So they're no longer allowed to be neutral. Usually this happens if due to their abstentions, the draft resolution ends up being the same number. So it's a tie and they are not allowed to move forward or for or against the DR. Caucuses, as mentioned previously, we've already talked about this. Points, okay, these are also very important and they should be included in your placards as well. But every single delegate needs to keep in mind a POC is used at the end of, let's say a delegate made a speech and you don't understand what a certain what they're meaning, or maybe the delegate has not been clear. So that you may raise a POC and ask to rephrase the sentence or ask to clarify what they meant, right? Point of parliamentary inquiry is a question that the delegates have for the chairs. So anytime you raise a POPI, your question is directed to the chair. So it could be about ROP, could be about flow of debate, could be about anything important related to the committee session. Point of personal privilege is usually used for if you need to use the washroom, if you need a power socket, if you need an extension cord, if you have an emergency, if you are unable, okay, if you're unable to hear another delegate, usually the chairs would call out the delegate as soon as possible. So hopefully it doesn't come to that. But yeah, it's any matters that you need to inform the chair during a formal session that only concerns you as an individual. Point of order is if the chairs are not following the ROP or not following the flow of debate. So if you feel that the chairs have made a mistake, you may raise a point of order and say, chairs, I don't believe that this was in motion, or I don't believe that this delegate believes that the chair has made a mistake here. Point of information, as mentioned earlier, it is during the GSL when the delegate wants to ask another delegate a question in regards to their speech or in regards to the agenda. And lastly, the most beloved point, right of reply. This is used when a delegate feels offended by a speech made by another delegate. So, right of reply is essentially just just 2 to 3 sentences of you explaining why you feel that the delegate who has just made their speech said something offensive or said, maybe spread some misinformation that would affect your country's stance or affect your country's credibility. This too, when you raise it, the chairs will ask, okay, delegate, under what grounds are you raising a right of reply? And then you have to explain only if the chairs feel that it's a valid response, valid, call for motion, will they allow you to make your speech. That's it. There's no crosstalk. There's no, like the delegate respond to you. None of that. You just clarify you say what needs to be said. You clarify your stance, and then it's over. So these are our important documentations. Everybody's aware of a position paper by this point. A working paper is essentially a place where you can brainstorm ideas. For this as well, you will be able to present it during your council sessions. Draft resolutions are the document that you are working for. So it is where you will be compiling the solutions and the policies of what your council will do. So their actions. And amendments are for the draft resolution. So changes that you want to make for the draft resolution once it has been introduced. Friendly amendments are made by the sponsors and have been agreed by the sponsors. Unfriendly amendments, on the other hand, um, unfriendly amendments are amendments that are made by delegates who are not the sponsors. All right. So at this point, I believe that all of the delegates should have gone through the research report in which you will have what is needed of you to include in your position papers. So the basic stuff, the basic contents would be number one, the background of the issue, the significance of the topic, what is the current status of the issue, in your country. Next would be your countries in the world. Sorry, the first one would be just generally all round, and then the second part comes to your country. What has your country done for this agenda, and what are agreements or actions that your country has made in favor or against this agenda? And third would be your possible solutions. So what are some, possible solutions that you would like to suggest? What are some proposed solutions that would help, would help this specific agenda? What are the, countries that you can work with for this agenda? What are countries that you can't work with for this agenda? You may always, elaborate, but make sure that, everything is contextual. And what is the end goal of your country in this council for this conference? Right. Next up, obviously, the last thing should be your bibliography, so your citations. When it comes to the background of the issue, these are the questions that you should be asking yourself and should be included in your research. First of all, how is it relevant to the world in general? How is it relevant to your council? And how is it relevant to the other countries present in your council room? Secondly, what has your country done? What are the past actions? What is the historical background that has what are things that has happened in history that is directly related to this agenda? And then a framework that you may follow for your research and for your arguments would be the 5W1H. So these are just an example of questions that you can ask. Obviously, there's an array of questions that you may ask, and that is something that you should be branching out throughout your research. Generally, this is what you should be asking, such as what is the current situation? Why did this incident happen? Or why is this issue so significant, or why is this issue such a pressing matter back then slash now slash going to be in the future? How did it originate? When did it originate? And how is this thing developing in current time? And how is it going to have an impact on the future generation? When it comes to your country stance, similarly to the questions mentioned earlier, you should be answering why does it matter? How has it been proven that this is something that needs to be addressed? For you to gain research on this, you may go search through your local news sources, the government's official press releases, national laws, any credible, any information that has been published by the government website itself can be considered as credible, but you do need to check the viability of it, because if it is an article published in 2002, do you really think that it would not have developed now in 2025? So the timing of it all is very important to take note of. Don't just take information just for the sake of it, and then you hear another country call you out on using a foreign policy from like 25 years ago. Like, come on, that's not relevant, and that is definitely not going to help your argument whatsoever. In order for you to build your possible solutions, here is a simple framework that you may follow. It is called the SMART analysis. So S stands for specific, M stands for measurable, A stands for actionable, R stands for realistic, and T stands for timely. You may search this analysis framework online as well to see what are some other questions that you can use to branch out in your research. For this case, the things that you should be asking is, what specific thing do you want to elaborate on? What do you want to take action on? How do you prove that it works? Using what metrics? So, how are you counting? How are you taking account of the progress? What will your proposed policies do? Does your council have the resources or the power to do it? If yes, why and how? And if no, what do you want to do about this? And what is the the time frame that you are setting in order from the second you put this solution in place until the ending of it, until your thing that issue has been resolved. Now, moving on to our beloved document, the draft resolution itself. This is the format that you should be following. So, this is also accessible to all the delegates through the MyDP's HMUN ROP document that is included in your research reports. I'll just give you guys a second to take a look at this, but this is the standard format that every single UN draft resolution, sorry, most of the UN bodies draft resolution follows. Different councils do have different mandates, thus they have different formats to follow. But for all of our conventional councils from this conference, this draft resolution is what every single council should be following. So you have your council name, you have your agenda, and then you have your main submitter, which is the sponsors. You have your co-submitters, which are the signatories. So do keep in mind that all of this is meant to be in alphabetical order. And then you include your council name. You have your preambulatory clauses, which your preambulatory clauses are clauses, they are pieces of information either from frameworks or past actions, or notable things relevant to this topic that you need to mention or you want to take note of, whereas your operative clauses are the proposed solutions. Here are examples of the terminologies that need to be followed when writing your preamble and your operative clauses. Anything outside of this will not be considered as a valid preamble or operative clause. And if you mix the two up, your chairs will also deduct marks for it, or during the amendments, they will ask you to take account to it and add and make it an amendment, because it will not be considered as a valid preamble or operative clause if it's not following the correct format and if it's not in the correct place. This is something that the delegates can search up online as well. So while you're doing your research, or maybe if a certain block has started writing their draft resolution, do keep in mind to keep this tab open so that you're allowed to refer to it to see which preamble clauses and operative clauses are appropriate and are going to be the best match for for the either the either the past frameworks for the preamble, or for the operative clauses, your proposed solutions. Next up, coming to the amendments. So, as mentioned, there are friendly and there are unfriendly amendments. Friendly amendments are sent in by the sponsors, and that means that it has been discussed and agreed by all the sponsors and will be immediately fixed on the draft resolution. This is also done by the chairs and the chairs only. So after you've submitted the draft resolution, access to the only people who would have access to edit it would be the chairs and the creator of the Google Doc. So only the chairs will be able to make edits after after it's been introduced. Next, unfriendly amendments are amendments. Okay, these are the three types of amendments that can be sent in: to add a clause or subclause, to strike means to delete, to totally delete an existing clause or subclause, and to amend is basically to modify a current existing clause in the draft resolution. So perhaps you want to change a few words, or you want to change the order of it. Maybe you want to make clause A into subclause A into subclause C for whatever reason. That's all under modifying. The way in which you delegates send in their amendments is that after draft resolutions are already introduced, the chairs will send an amendment submission form into the group chat, and that's where you can access it. You would have to state your country, you would have to type in which draft resolution you're targeting and which amendment you're choosing here, and then you would state the existing amendment and your revised amendment. And now moving on to this. So, based on every single part of our briefing, you should be able to understand and conceptualize how the flow of debate would be. This is also included in the document that you will have access to. You should have already have access to in your research reports. So you begin. When you begin here, the chairs will look for a specific motion to open debate, and then that's moved into, and then now we'll be moving into roll call. So then the chairs ask the delegates, are you present or present and voting? And then after all the roll call has been done, the chairs will be looking for a motion to move into PSL, which is the primary speakers list. And then once that has been voted into, motioned and voted into, delegates can now add themselves to the PSL. Obviously, for every single council, it is encouraged for every single delegate to make their opening speech. After the PSL has been exhausted, the chairs will be looking for motion to introduce, to set the agenda. Then we vote on that, which agenda, and then we move into the general speakers list. So after a few speeches have been made, the chair will open the floor to any and all motions. This is where delegates can raise their placards and raise motions either for mod, unmod, or consultation of the whole, or introducing working papers, introducing draft resolution, or introducing amendments. Usually, draft resolutions are introduced after committee session 4. So after half a day of debate. Then again, it depends on your council flow. Some councils they manage to finish two agendas in our 8 9 committee sessions. Some conferences you end up only having time to really discuss about one agenda, so that's also under chair's discretion. And then voting, introducing the amendments, and then voting on the amendments, doing all of that, and then motion to vote on draft resolution. So if it passed, then yay. If it doesn't pass, then too bad. If there are other draft resolutions on the table, that will also be moved into voting procedure of. And then yeah, if there is time, and if there's the other agenda has not been spoken of, then the chairs will move into that agenda. So this is the general flow of our HMUN IOP. Right. So that concludes my briefing. I hope that has covered every single that has covered every single thing. I am unsure how to see the comments of this. Let me just. All right. So now that we have now that we have concluded our briefing, are there any delegates here who have any questions that they would like to ask? I'm really not sure how to see the questions. I'm really not sure how. Okay, considering that there are no questions on the floor, this will conclude this briefing. So, if any delegates here would like to ask any questions regarding this, you have the official email, or you may just direct your questions to your chairs. You have their contacts listed in your research reports. If you have any concerns for myself, then you can always drop an email at our official emails. Yeah, if that is all. I have, okay. So I'm not the one who set up the stream. So do not get mad at me that the chat is disabled. I have just come to realize that. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, kindly do. You can always email us, or you can just redirect it to your chairs. They are very well versed. All of your chairs are more than delighted to, answer any concerns that you have. If you have any concerns regarding anything else, do direct it to our emails. And yeah, see you guys in the next workshop.